name is Simone Bohnenberger. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Phrase. I'm looking at our product roadmap, but I also look after AI research. I've joined Phrase about 2 years ago with a background in productizing AI solutions for enterprise customers. My background is in fintech. I worked in a startup that I would say had some of the best talent in AI in London. My old CEO was a Harvard, Cambridge educated PhD who invented a new form of X-ray lasers. I worked with string theorists in AI. So a lot of AI expertise I would like to bring to the table here at Phrase.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Localization Today, here with our good friends of Phrase, Simone Bohnenberger-Rich. Thank you. And today, of course, we're going to have a conversation on product innovation, research and development methodology, AI enablement, and many other things. My name is Eddie Arrieta. I'm the CEO of MultiLingual Magazine. To begin with, for the past year and in recent history, there have been significant product updates at Phrase. Could you tell us a little bit about that and the most significant ones this year, or also what are the key customer problems these innovations are aiming to solve?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we've innovated a lot, which I'm proud to say. Let me take a step back and tell you a little bit about our purpose, and then I can dig into some of the things we've actually released. So the way we position ourselves in the market is really a holistic platform that centralizes localization use cases across the enterprise. Because if you look at enterprise customers, multilingual content is highly fragmented. It sits in marketing teams, it sits in product teams, it's in help centers. It's highly fragmented. There are a lot of point solutions who cater to that, and there's a very fragmented tech stack. That means customers have a very high overhead of costs managing these vendors, but also if you want to move into a world of, we call it real-time multilingual content, it's really, really difficult to combine these systems in the right way. So the platform that we've built, and our mandate is to create a holistic platform that centralizes use cases, but that enables two things. One is hyper-automation, which means when content is being generated, and when it's being published, this can happen with as little human intervention as possible. So I call it straight-through processing of content. The second part is around hyper-personalization. We firmly believe that the future of LLMs lies in being able to customize and tailor content much more to an audience, and hence generate much better returns in terms of conversion rates, engagement rates. So these are the two pillars we're working towards across the product platform.
Thank you. And, looking ahead, where are you focusing your energy in terms of a product development? And of course, we can guess from what you're mentioning.
Yeah. So I think I didn't quite answer your questions before in terms of what we've released recently.
Right.
So I think, and that dovetails with where we're headed. What we are focusing a lot is to drive this hyper-automation and hyper-personalization with AI-first solutions across the platform. One of the key components of the platform that we've actually didn't release last year, but 2 years ago, is our orchestrator, our workflow, no-code, low-code workflow orchestration tool that allows customers to combine different components of the platform to unlock new use cases, but also move into this world of hyper-automation by triaging content together with our quality framework to identify whether content should be reviewed by a human or whether it's fit for purpose to be straight-through processed. If it's not, there are different exception workflows and different business logic you can follow to either treat this content further with AI or to actually route it to the right team and the right individual. And last year, we've made significant improvements to the orchestrator. We strengthened it, we built it out. Other key innovations aligned with where we're headed are our Phrase Next Gen MT, which is really our LLM offering that provides much broader context and more nuanced output. And we're moving further into the content generation process through key features like auto-adapt, which allows localization teams to move much closer to where the business impact lies by adapting content to a specific audience, right? So not just translating it, but adapting it to, let's say, Gen Z in Sydney, which speaks very different from Gen Z, let's say, in Boston.
How do you... And this is one of the things that we internally at MultiLingual have always been very curious about. We see a lot of innovation happening how does it get done in terms of the methodology? Because it's great to understand the overarching goals and what the clients want, but then getting it done, actually executing it becomes really difficult. How do you approach research, innovation, product development, from the methodological perspective?
Yeah. So I'm gonna break this down a little bit into how we're set up and how we think about AI research. So we have a fairly big AI research team, about 10 AI data scientists that actually report into the product function to ensure that we're laser focused on customer problems and not necessarily moonshots. They're also applied scientists, which means we're not creating any foundational models ourselves. We let others like OpenAI and Gemini spend that money and we just leverage them. They constantly sift the market together with product managers to identify the best models that are out there, and then we make them fit for purpose for the enterprise. In terms of our approach to R&D and innovation, we are very focused on customer problems. So it's really important to start with a business case and a use case first. The use case could be that customers need to scale their operations with leveraging more AI, but being able to trust that AI. So for example, if you have a region like Indonesia where you want to move into straight through processing, we want to enable that. So really start with the business case, identify the ROI behind it, but including the cost that the AI has when you run it. So you have to draw a really firm business case, which starts with the product manager. So the way we're set up at Phrase is we have twin departments in product. We have a department called the AT department, which is run by a VP of product, Andrea Stubbe. She essentially manages the AI product managers. And parallel to that, we have the AI research department, which is run by Craig Stewart. He has a number of AI data scientists, and they work hand in hand. They have a parallel structure. So product managers identify the use cases in the problem space and then work with AI research to define whether that can be solved with AI. And they work hand in hand on the AI research agenda, but also trying to ensure that when the agenda delivers, how we actually roll out these AI features gradually. This is actually another component here is we also, the AI research team also does its own research, right? So it's not just all driven by product management, but the majority of it is. And there are some ideas and experiments that the research team works on. And if they're promising, then the product managers need to translate that into use cases. The second part, aside from the research, that's really, really important is when you release AI capabilities, there's a very different dynamic it plays from other product development features that you traditionally release. So if you release a feature like, a different upload functionality, it's quite binary. It works or it doesn't work. With AI features, you have the challenge that you have an underlying model that needs to perform. So it's much harder to identify product market fit. So what we're doing is we're running a lot of early customer beta programs and early adopter programs to really closely monitor and see if this AI capability actually works. Because typically in product management, you deal with code and users, and here you deal with code, users, and data, and they interact in a very different manner. So I think these are the three components. Start with the use case, embed AI research into the product functionality to be hyper commercially focused. And then when you roll out AI-powered features, work really closely with customers. The fourth component, in terms of how we even identify use cases, we work very closely with existing customers. So we have some customers who are really ahead of the curve. We consider them key innovators in their space. And we're quite open to where they see the future. So we work closely with them in identifying use cases. They're not the only input into the product function, but they're a very important one. So I think that's how I would summarize how we do AI product development.
And how about we talked a little bit about those key innovators in their space? How do you specifically make sure that their voice is meaningfully embedded in the product development lifecycle?
Yeah, we have various different means. First of all, we do have direct relationships as product with these customers. I myself show up quite regularly to talk to them about the roadmap. I had a session with one of our customers just last week for an hour to talk about how they're struggling with their knowledge graph, how they are thinking about their AI future. So we're in constant touch with these key customers. We use them for discovery. So in product development, you have a phase when you have a hypothesis about a use case and a problem. What you do is discovery and validation, which is when you begin to work with customers. You show little prototypes and try to understand if that works. We work quite closely with a group of customers to do exactly that. Then we have something called customer advisory boards that we run regularly, where we invite a group of customers to talk about specific ideas we have and to get collective feedback, not just individual feedback. And then that's the ideation phase. In the implementation phase, these customers then participate in our beta programs. They're closed programs. You get invited. So we just ran in a beta program between January and March on our auto-adapt functionality. I think we had about 13 or 15 customers in that. And the purpose is then really to see, does that solution drive value as expected? Does it behave as expected? And it's usually with the same customers.
That is really great. Of course, as you're scaling your AI product suite, you are going to have to balance usability, control, transparency for innovation. What principles guide that balancing process for you?
So a key principle is we, first and foremost, we develop products for the enterprise. And that means errors can be very, very expensive. So to give you an example, in my previous company, we analyzed with an NLP and computer vision platform highly negotiated documents in investment banking, so syndicated loans that back $500 million or CLOs that get invested in. So small errors are extremely painful and expensive. And I think that's a lesson I carried into the localization space, where it's the same, right? If you make a brand mistake, it's very expensive. I think Air Canada suffered from a lawsuit because a chatbot made a mistake and offered a discount. I think in Germany, DPD Slackbot actually complained about how bad DPD was to a customer. And I think we saw somewhere in the Czech Republic that a retailer didn't update the currency symbols from euros to the Czech currency. And as a result, you could buy shoes very cheap over the weekend. Right? So I think these errors can be very expensive, especially in the enterprise. So what guides us is reliability of the AI, transparency of the AI, performance and control. And our promise is that we do not release gimmicks. So we can talk about, what's currently on everyone's mind, like agentic AI and other areas. What's really important is if you have enterprise customers, you cannot release a gimmick that doesn't work, right? You have to ensure that what you do is performant. It's controllable. So what we have done in terms of our balance, we invest a lot in our quality frameworks. We believe that the AI models that drive the world are getting commoditized. I think every day when you open your LinkedIn, you see another model that has been released in the LLM world. So you have a bouquet of choice. These LLMs get increasingly specialized because they're huge and they come with trade-offs. But ultimately, what drives the value of that LLM or AI is an understanding of whether it performs and you can trust it, which is all about evaluation frameworks or risk frameworks, or in this industry, we call it quality frameworks. And so we invest a lot in quality frameworks. 2 years ago, we doubled our AI research team and we hired the leading team in the market that focus on evaluation. So Craig, for example, was one of the co-authors of the Comet score. So quality frameworks, big bet for us. AI models themselves, we consider a commoditized space. What matters is how you get these models to perform reliably on the enterprise. What you actually need, and this is the balance, is you need a platform approach to make AI work reliability. So you do need exception. First of all, you need data assets. What we're putting a lot of focus on is helping our customers to curate the data assets, but also optimize them for the use of AI. If you think about what will drive the biggest value unlock for LLMs, it's the customization of them. They've been trained on publicly available data. They do not reflect your tone of voice. They don't understand your customer demographic. They're not sitting on your market research. These are all data points you need to feed into these LLMs to make them valuable. But that puts a very different emphasis on these data assets and how they need to perform. A translation memory is no longer enough. It also needs to perform differently. Style guides and glossaries are too static. It has to be a different concept. So what you need is a platform that combines a customer's data with the AI, but also gives you the quality framework to assess how well that AI performs, and then gives you the workflow for the exception handling. And it has nothing to do with the localization space, by the way. This is absolutely industry agnostic. That's what you need to do to get AI to perform. Doesn't matter in which space you're in, right? If you're in legal contract negotiations, it's the same. If you're in localization, it's the same. If you're in medical imaging, it's the same. It's the same problem. You need the same components. So that's how I think that explains a little bit the balance of what we're doing. Trying to get the ultimate North Star is always to make sure that the AI is performant and reliable. It delivers ROI over time.
And of course, it seems like the conversation now that we have so many tools to get translation and global content put out there in many different ways, that the conversation comes back to quality. And the conversation on quality has evolved significantly now that AI is involved. How is Phrase redefining quality in automation and outcome-focused localization?
Yeah, I think what LLMs do, I sometimes call them the opportunity of a lifetime in localization to move closer to this business impact story. Localization is an essential part of any go-to-market strategy, expanding into new locales, maintaining competitive advantage. But I think with LLMs now and the ability to tailor content more to audiences, depending what you know about them, their context, and what you know about the company, is a major unlock. It shifts the focus on content and how it performs. And when I say how it performs, it doesn't matter if a doc has been translated in the right way into Chinese. It's really how well, ultimately, does this content work once it's with an audience. So what are your engagement metrics? What feedback do you get? What are your conversion rates? And I think this is where we see a big opportunity to tap into this data and bring it back when we talk about content. We are working on a new control layer across our entire platform that we call the Control Hub. One of the first prototypes of that Control Hub will release towards the end of this year. It shifts content center stage. So at the moment, you can access our platform and look at orchestrate and different components we have. That experience will be very different. You will enter the platform just seeing different content types, how they've performed over time, how much you've invested in them, what models they're running on, what security questions you may have around them. So moving content center stage and how it performs is our number one goal in terms of quality evaluation. Then, of course, when you go into a world where LLMs are subjective, because you introduce things like, hey, use my brand tone, which is very friendly and casual for Gen X in New Zealand, you don't speak English, you want to know whether the outcome is right. And that means the current industry standards for capturing quality are not fit for purpose anymore. So what we're working on is a concept where that content that feeds into the LLM is funneled through the entire process, including the quality assurance, and informs that. So you have a better sense of quality. Everything we do is informed by our company vision. And if you listen to Georg when he speaks, our company vision is very clear. We believe we're entering a world where GenAI will produce most content. I mean, we can see that today as well. You get wishy-washy content because someone just ran it through GenAI. We get spammed by new emails and other things. So there's a proliferation of content that is also an opportunity because you can tailor content much more to an individual, right? Maybe the website, the Nike website that we will look at in the future will show something else to you, Eddie, than it shows to me, right? It might show me the paddle boards, and it might show you the tennis, whatever you're interested in. But this proliferation of content is exactly what we're working towards. So what we ensure is, A, we have the platform that runs the use cases that generate that content. So, different areas and businesses now just use GPT to translate something. There might be someone in ops who just puts, personal or company data into a GPT chatbot or Google Translate. We have a portal in our platform that allows localization teams to make that functionality accessible to the entire organization. So when you have ad hoc requirements, that can be served through AI. What we're building out, though, is the underlying infrastructure that can cope with that content and that is involved in the content generation, that also has sophisticated first gating mechanisms for you to funnel out, is this content good or not, and then really quickly. So our QPS score, for example, is very lightweight. It's built on a very lightweight, scalable AI architecture to ensure it can scale across masses of content, right? So the first stage gate is an AI first assumption of assessment. Is this content compliant with our risk profiles or not? And if not, then you can start with the exception workflows, and then you can start with the humans in the loop. But that's exactly the future we're working towards, is a platform that is extremely scalable, but also where all the components are so interoperable that you can generate, that you can funnel through content in real time, multilingual content in real time that's generated under, 2 seconds or 1 second, whatever your need is. So from an architectural point of view, from an integrations and connectivity point of view, everything we do from our workflow tools is now trying to deliver that scale, and automated quality frameworks that tell you, with the masses of content that are going through, are they reliable? And we're centralizing the content. So you don't need to worry as an organization that, someone in legal is using GPT and then someone in ops is using Gemini. You can cater to these use cases on the same platform.
Excellent. And how does Phrase help make sure that the customer delivers brand consistent? Yes. Locally relevant. Scale, sure, volume, sure, speed, sure. Mm-hmm. Now brand consistency. Yes. How's that?
I think that's the beauty of a centralized platform, right? What we do is we also centralize the data assets that actually feed and provide the tone of voice and the content. We now do this across different formats. We've launched our studio functionality a couple of weeks ago. So we do this across text, audio, and video, which is a holistic omni-channel experience. And that will feed off the same data assets that customers have, the same single source of their tone of voice and their brand.
And this, I'm sure I'm going to talk more about this with Gerd, of course.
100%.
Which is going to be great. But you also mentioned we are going to be in a world where GenAI will generate most of the content. How do you approach building trust and delivering real value with AI-led innovation for the clients?
Mm-hmm. So this is going back to the point of start with a real use case and a real customer pain point, and not with a moonshot. So the real customer pain point today is automation. Take existing processes and automate them and make them more efficient, and lay the groundwork for that world in which content gets generated and proliferated with GenAI. Gain trust by showing quality scores and explain how they work, but not just quality scores that start at one point in the process, but that really cover every single step in this process that happens when you take multilingual content, you modify, adjust, translate, and you publish, right? So this consistent evaluation framework is super critical. And then work really closely with customers in beta programs, also during the rollout of capabilities, and be very strong on documentation and explain. And of course, we have our security and governance standards, right? And we are very transparent around those. And we have very strict also legal requirements with our customers.
And could you tell me a little bit more about your quality structure and quality scores? Are there any specifics that you can tell me about it? Are there several quality scores? How does that environment or ecosystem of quality looks like?
So our quality framework has several components. We have our QPS score, which is a score from 0 to 100, which it's built on an MQM framework. So MQM is the leading standard in the industry, how you, in a very structured and objective fashion, identify errors, categorize them, but also score them. We happen to sit on a lot of MQM high quality data, which we use to train our QPS score. QPS is the first thing you can do, and you can set the QPS threshold yourself. In our analytics dashboard, we show you what the consequences of that are. So if you're setting your QPS threshold to 80, how much post-editing time would you save? The second step we have after the QPS score is our AutoLQA functionality that explains to you what's actually going on, what types of errors are happening, how severe are they. Right, so you have a combination of a gating mechanism, but also a detailed interpretation of what's actually going on for content that's problematic. So step one is distinguish between content that requires review and content that's actually fine to be processed. that's really powerful. We've done a large case data study with a customer over many, many months, and we've shown that QPS outperforms humans in triaging content that needs to go for review or not. Right? It's very powerful. So second step, when you have this bucket of content that's been triaged for review, the auto-LQA functionality helps you with an initial analysis to tell you what's actually wrong with this content. And then you can still decide, oh, these are actually non-critical errors for me. This is for a low risk language pair. I'm still okay to publish. The third layer that we have is actually rules-based. So we're currently in discovery, and we're trying to release this in the fall. But that's really a rules-based approach where you can define what errors are most critical to you in any case. That's how you build really holistic and solid quality frameworks in AI, independent of the localization space, right? AI is probabilistic. If AI models make mistakes, you can go back and invest in retraining the model, which is expensive for an LLM. You have to be OpenAI. Or you combine the model with some hard-coded rules to sift out your errors as much as possible in a very solid risk governance framework and then publish.
That is really great. That conversation that you also mentioned about security and privacy is a big deal for companies. Could you give us a few more words on like how important is it internally for you and your team?
Security and privacy is top, right? So we don't take customer data to train unless they consent to that, first and foremost. We ensure that when we assess new models, for example, Widen or GPT, whoever we work with, that they have solid security guarantees in place or also privacy guarantees in place. We are model agnostic, so we have a huge portfolio of AI models. I think I've mentioned earlier, we're not a believer in the models themselves. They will get commoditized. The strength lies in the choice because not a single model can solve all your use cases. So that portfolio approach is really important. With that a portfolio approach, we also have custom AI, which is a functionality, a no-code functionality that you can use to train or create a new machine translation model on your existing data with an algorithm, and it's completely airtight to just you. So instead of relying on, Amazon or Google, you can train on your own data sets a new MT model that's in production only for yourself. And we have built a no-code ML ops framework around it that allows customers to understand how well the model performs. So you don't need to be a data scientist to create an MT model. That's custom AI. So at the extreme end of the spectrum, we're offering the super security where you don't even have to go through public models.
Yeah, and clearly this is all going to be very important for this whole orchestration conversation. Mm-hmm. How is Phrase approaching AI as an enabler of orchestration and just automation across the whole content lifecycle?
Mm-hmm. So AI and orchestration go hand in hand. I think if you think about process automation, you cannot do it just with an AI model. You need a workflow that delivers a couple of things. The workflow needs to fit into your existing processes. There's a lot of change management usually involved when you begin to automate processes because someone used to check something and that was the third step in the value chain, and now they need to do this at the beginning or at the end. There's usually lots of change management involved. An orchestration layer puts away with that because you can replicate your actual today's workflow with AI. The second step is what happens if an AI model creates a problematic outcome? What happens to this outcome in the content? Where does it move? It doesn't move along in the pipeline. You need an orchestration workflow. So the two of them are critical for us. There's a massive internal benefit from a product development perspective as well, because we have our own workflow solution that is deeply embedded with our AI. We can use it to innovate and prototype really quickly. We often release AI functionalities first in the orchestrator to understand how well they perform. They become accessible. They plug into different systems. You can define and combine different capabilities across the platform. And then after we've seen that works, we move it in production. So intelligent workflows are the quintessential ingredient to move into the world of straight-through processing, right? Because you need exception loops. You need to pass the content on. It can't just sit there. And second of all, it's a critical innovation tool for us.
And of course, clients that don't use any of this probably are at a huge disadvantage. Could you tell me a little bit, and you work with clients very closely, what does the team that works with this properly, that does localization properly, that works with content properly, that takes advantage of your solutions properly, what does it look like success for them, or what do they look like in that success?
So at the moment, it is more mature customers, so more mature localization teams of advanced customers who are using the orchestrator quite extensively. But there are, interestingly, also the customers who spend most with us and who are the fastest growing. So what it looks like, I can give you an example use case. One of our customers has help center content that gets translated into different languages through AI. They use QPS as the first gating mechanism to check, has the translation been good enough for our purposes? And if not, it's being routed to the team and the actual linguist or annotator for the exact language pair or the domain through the orchestrator. And then it gets then published also through the orchestrator.
Fantastic. And of course, now we're all going to have to start thinking about agentic. Some agentic workflows. At MultiLingual, we believe that's going to be for end of the year is going to be the year of agentic. So with that growing interest and AI-driven interaction, what excites you most about this evolution from the product standpoint?
I think agentic has tremendous opportunity, right? I think it has tremendous opportunity within product development itself to make our own discovery processes more efficient, to sift through customer feedback differently and execute it differently. But on the outside, in the localization space, from a software development perspective, it will be one of the key enablers of that real-time delivery of multilingual content. So using agents, we can automate faster because decisions will be made faster. The most optimal tools will be combined. So think about a world where an agent picks up content, automatically knows what content type is it, picks the right engine, adapts it to the core audience, checks the feedback, and then iterates and improves. It would take quite a while if you do this with worlds. So I think there is a lot of tremendous opportunity there. However, what we all have to be very conscious of is that agents are running on LLMs and they compound all the problems that LLMs have. So if you're an agent that has to make 5 decisions or 3 decisions and it gets every single decision right at 80%, that sounds good, but the outcome will be 51%. And that means it's a coin cost and it's garbage. You can't rely on output that's 50% correct. So for agents to work, you really need to make sure that the foundations are right. That means you need optimized data assets. You need LLMs that perform consistently, and you need quality frameworks that are highly reliable. So we just released our first agentic solution, PAX, this summer, around a functionality that localizes and adapts automatically and goes into your data sources. We are very conscious to constrain the number of decisions an agent can make initially to ensure it performs really well before we go all out agentic across the platform.
And could you tell us a little bit more about the agentic pack? What does it include?
So PAX is our broader vision of how we're approaching agentic or how we're talking about it. So PAX is the umbrella framework for different agents that we're releasing on the platform. Ultimately, all of the phrase platform will be PAX. We've created this terminology to show that we're starting with a couple of agents around auto-adapt, around auto-LQA, that we will make agentic first and that we're building out. And that's as our umbrella term. We call it PAX.
Thank you. And of course, this is incredible change, incredible innovation. How do you keep your team motivated, engaged?
It's a good question. How do I think my team in general is super motivated because they have the self-understanding that they're working in a space that from an AI perspective is super exciting. The localization space is full of labeled data. That's any data scientist's dream, right? Which means it's a playground for AI. Now, the key challenge in this space is that your answers, whether they are right or wrong, are subjective, right? In other industries, you have a very binary understanding whether you have the image is an apple or not, yes or no. But in localization, how good an output is sometimes very subjective. It depends on the linguist who is at the receiving end of it. So I think there's an excitement of being in a space with a lot of data and a really interesting challenge, but also there is a self-understanding that we are working for a company that has managed to innovate a lot, and we think we have the right ingredients to disrupt the market and really lead the market into more content-centric thinking. And I think that's a very exciting mission that we have that excites people.
I'm sure it is. Of course, as all these changes are happening, as you're mentioning, some of your companies are at the forefront. They are leading. They are increasing their bottom lines. They are increasing their teams. They are growing across the globe. It's probably because they've made significant mind shifts in how they approach AI. For you, product leaders and CEOs, what do you think is the most important mind shift they need to make today in this age of AI and evolving customer expectations?
There are a couple of really important principles, but they're not new, right? I think these are principles that you need to follow or should follow no matter whether you're dealing with neural networks or LLMs. So LLMs are great because they lowered the barrier to experiment with AI because we all can prompt now. But the fundamental challenges of AI have not gone away with LLMs. So there are a couple of principles. One is always start with a use case and a business case around the problem you want to solve with AI. Don't start with a moonshot and think about AI as a means towards an end and say, hey, this model could potentially make coffee, make my bed, and drive my car to school. It's a moonshot, and there might not be a use case for it, right? So always start with the use case and then think about whether this use case is suitable to be solved for AI, and would the effort and the cost justify solving this? That's why we've also embedded AI research into the product functionality at Phrase. So really start with the use case. Second, don't consider AI in feature. It's a capability and it requires an entire platform to make sure it works. So unless it's for you at home, when you talk about, when you feed GPT what's in your fridge and you want your dinner recipe, it's okay if it makes mistakes. But if it's for an enterprise customer, it cannot be a feature. It's a core capability that requires a huge wrapper around it to make sure it's reliable. You need data, you need workflows, you need quality frameworks. It's a platform approach, and that's really important to think through.
Before we go, if you can tell us a little bit of what's coming for Phrase, and if you can connect this with what's the future of AI, fantastic.
Yeah, great. Let me try. So on our immediate roadmap, we are working on these pillars I've mentioned earlier. One, we are very laser focused on data assets and how they need to work differently and how they need to become enriched. Translation memories, glossaries, style guides are no longer fit for purpose for the world of LLM and that world of hyper-personalization that happens dynamically and in real time. So what we're working on we call them context-rich dynamic data assets. We start with the content profile. That's something we've been working on for a while, which is you can think of it as a vehicle that inserts very structured, broad context into an LLM. Because an LLM doesn't have an infinite input window, right? You can't just lift a knowledge graph and put that into an LLM. It doesn't work. So we're very deliberate about how do we broaden context into LLMs so the output is hyper-personalized, custom, including constraints you can mention like legal constraints, regional constraints, maybe even engine constraints, whatever you want it to be. So we're investing a lot in the data assets. We're working on our evaluation framework. I've mentioned earlier, we think it's a huge opportunity to connect business metrics back to the evaluation framework to say, given the setup you've chosen and the engines you've chosen and the input you've chosen, how has this actually delivered with customers? How was the actual impact of that document? Did it work or not? Or the content type, the video, audio, whatever you have. And then I think as a next step in the long term, I see this turning into a recommender system. So you get a recommended setup and approach to different content types. We're refining packs because we only released our first agent. So we're working on what agent could next, but also what are we learning from the existing agent that we have in the market. We're collecting a lot of feedback. And then our video capability, right? We want to integrate that deeper into the platform and also include that into our quality framework. So you have a really holistic quality framework that's format agnostic.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's going to be really great for the audience to learn about. Before we go, is there any message you want to share with the community, the audience as a whole, those that are looking to think about global content and global strategy for content before we go?
It depends the audience. So I think for anyone who deals and works in the localization space right now, I genuinely believe that LLMs are a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to have a much greater say in the impact of that content and how it resonates with the audience. I feel localization managers and linguists will become experts on what resonates and what works. I think LLMs are a key tool to do that. For anyone in product or in product development, I think my key thoughts are there is a lot of innovation happening. The space is moving very quickly, but the key principles stand. You have to be laser focused on the value you want to unlock and the business case and the customer problem.
This was our conversation with Simone Bohnenberger, CPO at First. My name is Eddie Arrieta, CEO here at MultiLingual Magazine. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Eddie. That was great.
Excellent.